Kia ora and welcome to the Oho Ake Books podcast. My name is Fareus. So today I want to talk about multidimensionality. Multidimensionality. Is that even a word? Multidimensional living? How does that sound? Multidimensional existence. And as synchronicities would have it in my life in the last few months, or in the last few years really, but in the last few months, my understanding of multidimensional existence has gone to a whole new level, given the nature of what I've been experiencing and the synchronicities that have come into my life and the deeper understandings that I've had due to the nature of my experiences that have brought me to this place where my understanding and my perception of multidimensional existence has gone off the charts. So let me start at the very beginning in regards to my experiences with multidimensional existence. In regards to the way that I have come to understand it now in 2022. Now, what I mean by going back to the beginning here, I want to go back to a place where just recently, where I understood the nature of multidimensionality in regards to one of those situations we find ourselves in if we have a form of stasis, which is of course sleeping at night. Often if we have a dream, we think it's a dream, we think it's a projection of our subconscious mind. And mainstream science has told us often our dreams are just projections of our consciousness, our subconscious mind of the day's happenings into a state of hallucinatory visual cortex, visual information that just presents itself as this story that we make up, our consciousness makes up in our minds and our brains. But to me, that's all changed a lot. Now, I've always believed, and my feeling has always been with regards to dreams, there is so many unknowns around them that we can't just write them off as being some kind of figment of our brains, projections and creations while our body's in stasis and repairing itself. Now, for me, it goes beyond that now, and I really feel this. When the body goes into a form of stasis, which we call sleep, when it begins to regenerate itself, the computer systems, the software programs that are in our bodies and our biology that we do not normally relate to, those programs that restore our bodies, that heal our bodies, the production lines of all those things that happen in our bodies without us really being aware of it, the innate repair systems, the software programs, as I call them, that go into rejuvenating the body, healing the body while we sleep, the hormonal processes, the endocrine processes, the list goes on and on and on, right? When this is all happening, supposedly our consciousness goes into a place where it clears, according to some practitioners, some scientists, some mainstream information, it basically clears the decks by giving us these experiences, these projections of a situation where we find ourselves having these things called dreams. And those dreams are just projections to clear out the clutter of the day, so to speak. In some aspects, right, some people believe that. But for me, my dreams, especially in the last 6 months, have been so lucid, so existential, so visceral, and so incredibly powerful that I have been really in a state where I've come to a place where I've understood, and this is my understanding, not necessarily the truth for anybody else, but for me, my perception of this is quite clear. I really feel as though in my dream state, when I'm in this place of stasis, that my consciousness is shutting my body down to a place where it's regenerating itself, but my consciousness, my awareness, my mindfulness is waking up, so to speak, or is becoming aware of itself in another body, and another level of existence, and another parallel universe, and a multidimensional plane of existence. I'm becoming aware of other lifetimes as my consciousness is occupying other bodies and other levels of existence. Now, this brings me back to the place where I remember Carlos Castaneda's work with Don Juan Matos and the art of dreaming. And for me, only once in my life have I found my hands and remembered it. I mean, my dreams. And that was one of the first things I learned from Castaneda. When you find your hands when you're dreaming, then you know that you're dreaming. then you have control over it. Now, I'm no Robert Monroe. I'm not a cat who has out-of-body experiences and goes through all these levels and has these incredible experiences with the astral body. I'm just a cat who's just getting into this process of understanding something far more deeper than my everyday living and life, and my own processes through my creative processes of writing books over the years, and my understanding personally of multidimensional existence. So for me to find my hands in my dreams was a big buzz, and the only time I found my hands when I've been dreaming was, I don't know if you've seen the movie Highlander before, the movie with Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert and Clancy Brown, the Kurgan, the Highlander, Ramirez. Well, I don't know if you've seen the movie before, but in the movie where Sean Connery's character and Clancy Brown's character, the Kurgan and Ramirez, are having a fight up in this castle where Connor McLeod and Heather are living, and they go to the top of the stairwell, and the stairwell gets knocked, part of the castle gets knocked down during the sword fight, and there's stars exposed behind Sean Connery when he stabs the Kurgan, and then the Kurgan falls down into the castle. Well, I remember walking up a castle stairwell in a dream and getting to this top of this ruin of this castle, and when I got to the top of the stairs, I looked down and I saw my hands, and I knew in that moment that I was dreaming. I was like, oh my God, I am dreaming, and I can see my hands in my dream. What the hell? Next move, I can do anything I want. And then I woke up. I woke up and I was like, no, I was just dreaming. God, no. So I didn't continue on with the process. I didn't really get to a place where I was able to actually continue on that dream and actually create what I wanted to create. But recently in my dreams, I've got to a place where I've actually been waking up and becoming aware of my dreams, that I'm actually dreaming. And I'm aware of the situation that I find myself in and the connections I'm making with these people that I'm meeting in these dreams. And a lot of these connections are really intimately interpersonal, really loving, beautiful connections with these people who actually talk to me like they really know me. And I really know them and my connection with them. And whatever circumstance I find myself in, I really feel as though, and this is true, I feel as though with these connections with these people that I'm meeting and these beings, because not always humans, sometimes they're beings that I'm meeting, these connections I'm having with these beings is so real, so lucid, I feel like I've known them for a long time, like we know each other. The level of connection we have, the use of language with each other, the levels of affection we have with each other. And some of these relationships I've been having, interpersonal relationships, are intimate relationships with women that I've been meeting in these dreams, and the intimate connection I have with these women in these dreams. I'm not talking like in a sexual way. I'm talking about an intimate way, like a really emotionally intimate way, a connected way. These connections feel to me like they've been fostered and nurtured for a long time. Now, the one thing I've wanted to do in regards to the situation, when I find myself in these dreams, and I'm aware of the fact that I'm dreaming, but I haven't seen my hands, but I'm aware of the fact that I'm dreaming, that I'm in this lifetime. I'm in this other lifetime other than my own in 3D. I'm having this experience of having this dream and being in this lifetime, is that I want to walk past a mirror. I want to walk past a mirror or see my reflection somewhere to see what I look like. Do I look exactly the same as I do in this 3D reality, or am I occupying another body? Am I occupying another body? My consciousness across this multiverse of existence, is it occupying other bodies other than the one that I live in right here in this dimension? What do I look like in other dimensions? What bodies am I inhabiting? It's a really powerful and amazing concept in my mind. I'm like, no, seriously, I want to see my reflection when I'm in a dream next, just to see what I look like. You know, because I have this feeling as though my consciousness is occupying many bodies and across the multiverse, but I don't really feel as though my body is going to look exactly the same across all these levels, these parallel levels of existence, these parallel lives. I really feel as though my body's going to look very different. I could be female in some bodies. I'm not limiting myself to being just a man in all my lifetimes across multidimensional existence. I really feel as though I could be a female, I could be a child, I could be an old man, I could be an old woman. You know, I could be a non-human being in some of these lifetimes. I'm not seeing myself, not seeing my hands or finding my hands, or seeing reflections of myself. Now, when I saw Doctor Strange, the Marvel Studios movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that kind of was massively synchronistic for me, because at the time I've been having these ideas and these notions. This movie appeared, like boom, there it was, and I was like, oh my god, the synchronicities. And I watched it last night, and while I was watching it, some pennies dropped for me in regards to the nature of this multidimensional existence and how our consciousness is occupying all these bodies. And it was like, that's how I've been living my life. That's my creative projects for the last 14 years of my life, since I started Oho Ake books. You know, when I was possessed in the early mid-90s, and I had Lord Buford Somerset come into my body after my possession to help me to move the psychic residue that I was stuck in my body, by writing out these short stories in 3 weeks, filling up 2 exercise books full of short stories in less than 3 weeks, with short stories, to help move that psychic residue out of my body cathartically to a place that it was gone, so I was no longer hanging on to it. It was no longer having a hold over me. I really felt like that was the beginning of my process of multidimensionality and my understanding of multidimensionality. But at the time, I didn't have the tools or the wisdom or the ability to understand what was going on for me, what was happening. And it would be many years later, many years later. In fact, 2020 was the year for me that it really dropped in and I understood the nature of what I was doing. But it would be 2021 that I would really understand the fact that for 14 years of my life, creating these books that I've created, these books that I've written with Armand Sueño, Pablo Wairua, Iho Grace, Lord Buford Somerset, and Dick Swab, are all parts of myself, all parts of my consciousness occupying different bodies on other levels of existence, and I'm channeling these parts of myself, overlaying them like Ryan Gosling's character in Blade Runner 2049, when the holographic Siri in his apartment overlays with the sex worker, and he has an intimate connection with that. I have this overlay of these parts of myself overlaying with my body when I'm writing these books. And this interconnection and overlay allows me to channel information that comes through from these parts of these stories that come from, once again, the multiverse. And I'm able to channel these stories and write them into short stories and novels. And, whoops, I set my mic. And I'm able to bring that information into context in regards to the books that I've written. So, in 2020, when I had an experience when I walked into the laundry bar here in Wellington, and there was a girl working there called Holly Hamilton, who I had met many times before, a couple of years. She'd been working in the bar for a couple of years before I had this experience. But I walked in there after my ex-partner and I, Inga, broke up, and we were moving on. We were moving on with our lives, but we were catching up for a dinner together and having a quiet drink and having a bit of a chat. And I walked into the bar and I saw Holly, but then I saw this overlay begin to manifest around her. And it was the most bizarre experience, because it was like tripping, a visual hallucination, but I was completely sober and completely straight. But it was like the most lucid experience. It's like a dream within a dream. Edgar Allan Poe, all that we see and seem is but a dream within a dream. I saw this overlay of this beautiful dark blue skin, humanoid creature with yellow eyes with pools of white in the middle of her eyes, swirling like whirlpools, long, illustrious jet black hair over her body. Now Holly's sort of not like this. She's Scottish, and her ancestry is Chinese Scottish, so she's a very unique and beautiful individual. But this being began to manifest and overlay over her body. And I was like, what the fuck am I seeing here? I was kind of like stunned stunned at first. I'm like, what am I seeing? What the hell's going on here? And I really feel as though the energetic confluence that began to take, that went from supercharged from 2012, when this energetic shift of cosmic radiation began to bombard this planet and this dimension. In 2020, there was a shift that needed to happen in order for us to be able to, for those of us who are evolving and shifting and changing with this energetic shifts, this upgrade became prevalent for us because we needed it due to the nature of what was coming. Excuse me. Whew. Where did that come from? So what happened for me was I had this moment of visual stimulus and an experience where I began to see the overlay with my eyes open and began to see it in a way that really anchored into me this idea of multidimensionality. I didn't know what was going on at the time. I just saw it and went, what the fuck is that? And I just saw her and smiled as I walked past that. And as I walked past, it began to dissolve in front of me and was gone. And I saw her in that form a number of times after this experience. I went and saw my ex-girlfriend for a drink. I'd walk into the bar and there she was, and I'd see her, but it wasn't all the time. It was like the initial experience of seeing her this way gave me the information, the download I needed to have to remember the lifetime that we had interacted and she looked that way. And she was a being from that came through the Sirius portal, the portal of the star system Sirius, a being that came through that portal from an aquatic planet that came to the Earth and was living, well, it wasn't living, but had been in the market in Dwarka, Krishna's Dwarka, and I had been a merchant there, and I was a merchant. I'm looking at this not necessarily in a linear sense, but in a sense of like time is not linear, time is a loop. So shall we say, in my perspective and my understanding. So everything's happening in the eternal now. So my consciousness was embodied in a body from a man, a merchant that had travelled from Mauritius, from the continent that Mauritius was before it became an island. This is at the end of the glacial, before the end of the glacial maximum, and at Krishna's Dwarka. The original Dwarka, the golden city of Dwarka, which is now underneath the ocean, which marine archaeologists have discovered. I was a merchant selling corals from Mauritius, the Mauritius continent around the area, in that market, and this information came to me after I had this visual appearance of this beautiful being overlaying with Holly's body. I began to remember the lifetime. I began to remember what happened to us, how our connection fostered, and how enamored I was with this being. And that ended up with me writing a book called A Dance Called Dwarka, a book of poems, me remembering my lifetime and moving through that process, and me writing about my process from the moment I saw her in the bar, but then through to the process of me understanding that lifetime and how our connection was, and how this experience had brought me to a place where I understood the level of multidimensional existence that I was having, and the nature of multidimensional existence from my own perception. But that was like the big fuse, that was the fuse being lit for me in regards to that. But what happened next after that, after I'd finished that book, was that I began to realize that the books that I'd written for 14 years had been basically what I needed to understand that I was a multidimensional being, and that what I experienced over that 14 years of writing those books was the fact that I was a multidimensional being, and my consciousness was occupying many levels of existence all at the same time. And these books that I'd written, they weren't the characters that I had believed in my mind when I first began to write these books, the Pablo Wairuas, the Amon Sueños, the Lord Buford Somersets, the Ehol Graces, the Dick Swabs. In my mind at the time I was writing these books back in before 2020, these were just characters that I was bringing forth. I was bringing forth like David Bowie would bring Aladdin Sane, or Ziggy Stardust, or the Thin White Duke. To me, they were just characters that I was embodying in order to write these stories. There was never like this sense of like, oh, I'm writing these books because I'm channeling a part of myself from multidimensional existence. At the time I was writing these books, I was like, I'm just creating these characters, and these characters got a history. I can see their entire lives, I can see their histories, I can see what they look like. All this stuff was coming in, and I was downloading it, integrating it, but I had no idea at the time. I didn't have the ability to recognize and have the wisdom to understand that what I was doing was actually channeling parts of myself, multidimensional parts of myself, into my body, into my etheric, into my energetic overlay, and then we were working together to write these books. A truly crazy, wild experience. And then in 2020, I had an experience which was also really formative in my understanding of multidimensionality. Very formative. And it took me to a place where I began to realize that dream state that we have, when you're in a dream and everything is so visceral, everything is so lucid, everything's so tangible, the touches, the smells, all your five senses are important in those dream states. And those dream states, when I say dream states, I mean like those multidimensional states of existence when you're in other bodies, because that's what they are to me. But I say dreams because people can relate to dreams as being dreams. When you're in those states, it isn't just that. You are really occupying another body. You're really occupying a space. You're occupying a form. Now, I began to use one of my friends got me to watch the CE5 Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind documentary in 2020. And I downloaded the app on my phone, and then I decided to join a group here in Wellington and become part of the CE5 group here in Wellington in New Zealand. And the group that I got together with was amazing. What I learned from the group, our administrator, Margot, who is incredibly gifted, a gifted psychic, a gifted healer, and a gifted body worker. She had been training with Stephen Greer in the United States, and her work with us was off the charts. It was so amazing, so incredible. And when we did some work together, often I learned the process of learning how to create the torsion field from your heart space, from your heart chakra space, and moving into that place where you moved into a deeper understanding of what it was that you were creating through this process, where you were going, how to vector out into space, how to send that heart energy broadly and across the planet, through the planet, into the planet's catacombs, into the middle earth, into the inner earth, the hollow earth, into deep space, through the solar system. And it was a form of remote viewing on some level, because you're taking your consciousness from your heart center and taking it out into deep space, through the solar system. And if you ever encountered any craft in that resonant space of it being your heart space, you had a connection with these beings, because they could see you and you could see them. And often I would see craft not like you'd see in movies, like metallic spaceships. I would see craft that were, in my perspective, weren't craft at all. They were actually, like me, they were consciousness remote viewing an area, remote viewing a particular area of space. And these craft to me look like giants, like suns, whitish bluish suns, or orange or red suns that were kind of floating through space. And we'd sort of clock each other, stop, check each other out, and then either make a connection or move on and keep going through deep space. And one time, I was naughty. I got told to do. I shouldn't have done this, but I did this anyway. I did this after I got told this was naughty after I'd had the fact I'd done this. But one night, I took some Wiriroa psychedelic truffles, which are native to this part of the country, the lower North Island, from about I think it's from about Palmerston North, the Ruahine Range, down through the Tararuas, down through the Aorangis, the Wairarapa, Wellington region, these little blue and all white psychedelic truffles. I picked a few, took a small handful, and altered my consciousness just a smidgen, just a little bit. Not a big heroic dose by any stretch of the imagination, just a tiny little smidgen. And I used to go up to a place called Wrights Hill in Koroi, which is probably the highest point in the Wellington region, one of the highest points in the Wellington region with a real lack of light pollution. I'd go up there and I'd vector out by myself into the solar system, into deep space, and then I'd often see craft, come back to where I was, vector back to where I was in regards to my location. So remote view out into deep space, my consciousness projecting out into deep space, projecting, and I'd go out through the galaxy, out into space, and I'd vector back into my body again. When I come back into my body again, I get flash bulbs. I'd have these drone-like crafts would appear in the sky, move through the sky, and would flash like a flash bulb of a camera going off in the sky. As a recognition, like, oh, there you are, and then it'll be gone. And that to me feels once again like it's a form of consciousness, it's a form of remote viewing from an intelligence that is maybe far more technologically advanced than we are, but definitely resonating on a heart kind of basis, a heart chakra kind of heart energy vortex kind of space. So I that night when I was just in my little tweaked older state of consciousness, I reached out and I vectored out into deep space, and I saw this white bluish star-like sun thing hovering in the sky in the deep space, and we saw each other, and I had a very clear telepathic clairaudient message that said, go home and go to bed. Like I've been told off. I was just like, what? Go home and go to bed? All right, sure. So I came back in my body again, and when I got back to my body, I was cracking up laughing, like hysterically laughing, going like, I'm going to go home, I'm going to go to bed. And I just went, this is crazy. I'm going to go home and go to bed. Okay, I'm going to do what I'm told. I'm going to go home, I'm going to go to bed. So I went home, and I crawled into my bed, and I was laughing my ass off as I got into bed, like in hysterics. I was still laughing and really exuberant about going to bed. Like, I'm going to go to bed. It's 8:30 at night. I'm going to go to bed. This is in like late winter in 2020. When I go to bed, I hop into bed. I'm thinking like, I'm going to go to sleep. And there's no way I'm going to go to sleep. My consciousness is altered to a place where I'm not asleep. I'm not awake. I'm sort of in this state between the two forms of what would you call it? It's between sleep and being awake and asleep. I can't think what you call it. But in that limbo state between the two states of consciousness. Let me get that one right. So, and then I was in this place, and then when I got to that place where I was just in that floaty, good feeling kind of state, when my mind was active and my body was active too, with the psilocybin and my serotonin having that key and lock system, and then the activation of the two neurotransmitters and the psychedelic alkaloid to having this kind of dance together in my body, as it does. I felt right away this pressure move up my duvet, like something was moving across my body, like literally pushing against my duvet, like literally pushing against my duvet. Something was moving up my body. And as it began to move up my body, I felt this most beautiful, powerful, nurturing, loving energy. It was so, so tender, like it knew me, like it loved me, like it truly adored me. As it moved up my body, this energy, now looking back at it, it read my etheric, it read my energetic body, it read my heart chakra, and it knew that there was someone in my life who I adored and loved deeply. And this being, this consciousness, manifested itself as that being, as that human. And that human and I, in that state where I wasn't quite awake, wasn't quite asleep, had an intimate tantric experience together for I don't know how many hours. Everything was tangible. Everything was, my five senses, I could feel every muscular twitch. I could feel every orgasmic clench of this being's body, the body of the being that it had created itself. I could feel it around my penis. I could feel the orgasmic clench of every orgasm. I could feel my own orgasm, my own internal tantric orgasms moving up through my body. Sorry, there's a plane flying over right now. Oh, it was a helicopter. Flying over my house towards the hospital. I live near the hospital here in Wellington. I could feel every orgasmic clench of the body of this being around my penis while I was having sex with it. I could feel every orgasmic rush, and I've been practicing tantric sex before, and I have practiced in the past, but I also have the ability to hold and maintain my semen and regurgitate it back in my body again, and through the breathing processes and through Taoist practices. So I wasn't doing this consciously, it was happening unconsciously. At the same time I was having this sexual experience with this being in my bed, in this state, in this multidimensional flux. And it really was a multidimensional experience for me, because it was, this energy had manifested itself, this being's consciousness had manifested itself as this human, and it and I were having this experience on a level that wasn't in 3D. It was a multidimensional experience, and it went on for hours and hours and hours. It was incredible. I can't put it into words what it was like. And I thought to myself, I was just tripping. I was just tripping. That was what it was initially. And next morning I woke up in the morning, the next day, I felt euphoric. I felt completely euphoric. And the first things I realized through this experience, this being had come to me, integrated with me in this way to learn more about human experience, what a human life felt like, what humanity felt like, what being human felt like. It wanted to know about my life. It wanted to know who I was. But it actually knew me. I knew that this being knew me from somewhere. Not necessarily in a human body, but it knew me from another part of the galaxy. And I've discovered through my multidimensional ascertainment that this being had come from Cassiopeia, from a planet in the Cassiopeia star system. And I knew what it looked like after the experience, when it wasn't forming itself in a human form. I knew what it looked like. And crazy enough as that sounds, the next night it came back. It came, and I was completely straight, and it began to move up my body again. I could feel it coming up, and I was like, uh-oh. I said, hey, you know what, man? Once was enough. That was so full on, so incredible, so powerful. But thank you, but no thank you. I'm not sure if I can handle doing that and feeling the way I feel right now. I think once was enough for me. Thank you very much. And when I said that, I could feel the energy slide back off my body, and then it stopped, and it was gone. And it was incredible. My friend Tabash, I went and saw in August, no, it was actually October in 2020. I asked him about this and said, look, I had this experience. Was it a dream? Was it just something I imagined? He said, no, it really happened. It really happened. This is you understanding your multidimensionality, your multidimensional self. This is you understanding your consciousness and its ability to have multidimensional experiences. This is you connecting with beings that understand that you can have these experiences multidimensionally, and you've had them before in other various ways throughout your life. Some of them not so pleasant. And when I say that, I mean in regards to possession experiences that I had in the early 90s, and also psychic parasites that attached themselves to me in the mid-90s as well, when I was living in my upper chakra system and I wasn't grounded in my lower chakra system, when I had a vacancy sign over my lower chakra system saying basically come on in. And then psychic parasites from the astral level had come and attached themselves to me to feed off me, of my fears, of my anxiety, of my guilt, of my shame, of all those resonances that I was bringing into my life due to my childhood traumas, and that was the person that I was. These multidimensional beings were able to attach themselves to me, he said, but in this situation, since you moved from your heart chakra, the experience was very different, and the experience that you had was only due to the fact that you're resonating in this way. But even though you've had this experience and you know what this is about in regards to your multidimensional existence, remember you're in a human body, and don't get caught up in this, because you're having a human experience. So try and be intimate with humans in this reality rather than multidimensional beings from other parts of the galaxy. Which I totally understand, which is why I probably said, no thanks, I'm good, once is enough. That was crazy, amazing, incredible. I feel euphoric. I feel incredible. I feel like I've come to a whole new level of understanding, but thank you. That once was enough. So for me, over the last 2 years, my understanding of multidimensionality has gone off the charts. It has become so vast, but I'm still learning, I'm still integrating, I'm still understanding. And I feel blessed to have the synchronicities that have come into my life over the last 2 years that have shown me so much about myself, about where I am, my conscious personal development is going, and my understanding of the nature of reality and the nature of the multiverse. Now, these are all my own perceptions, and no one else's truths but my own. And I could be batshit crazy, and that's fine too. And my feeling is I'm not. My feeling is I'm only understanding this deeper realization of what existence is and what it's all about. And to me, that is massive, a truly powerful and magical experience to have, and a way to perceive reality, what we call reality anyway. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it, and thanks for listening. I'm recording this podcast on a camera as well, so I can throw it on my YouTube channel. So that was me saying thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te wā. I'll see you again soon. An addendum to this video. My first real recollection of multidimensionality and my understanding of multidimensionality and parallel lives was a video that I'd done a long time ago. It must have been over a year ago now, I think, about the book called The Eyes of Love See All, where there's a short story in there that I wrote after I had a dream, and this kind of ties back to where I'm at now. This happened in 2014, by the way. I had a dream where I woke up in a dream in a room in a house in Tekapō. In that room, in that house, I saw myself, me, my face, myself, in another body, in a bed with somebody who I wrote a book for. The book was called The Eyes of Love See All. The person that I wrote that book for was sleeping in the bed next to me, and that self from that level of existence, that parallel universe, got out of the bed and took me downstairs, and this is in the short story in the book The Eyes of Love See All, and explained to me in that parallel universe, in that multidimensional existence, where that me, that part of my consciousness existing in a body that looked just like me. So maybe that answers my own question in regards to the nature of multidimensionality, told me that in that multidimensional parallel universe, I had married this woman and we had 2 daughters. But in my life and my reality, I had to love this woman and just let her go. Just let her go. Because years later, I would find out that what she wanted from me and what I wanted were 2 very different things. At the time in 2014, when this situation took place, when we had this connection and I felt inspired to write this book, The Eyes of Love See All. So that was my first experience into having an empirical perception of multidimensional existence that came through a dream. A dream, all that we see and seem is but a dream within a dream. It wasn't a dream. I woke up, my awareness became aware of itself in another level of existence, which sort of comes around a full circle in regards to with this video about multi-dimensional existence. Truly far out. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mā te wā. I'll see you again soon.